Hello and welcome to Thomas Geiger Car, finally sitting behind the steering wheel of the Mercedes EQE SUV. That's the fourth addition to the luxury lineup of electric Mercedes models, ready to hit the road later that spring. Produced in Tuscaloosa, it will compete with cars like an Audi Q8 e-tron, BMW iX, Tesla Model X, and the upcoming Volvo EX90 and Polestar 3. And if you want to know what to expect from that vehicle, join me on my first test drive and I'll tell you more about it. On the first few meters, the car feels pretty familiar. What a surprise, it's using the same architecture as all the upper class EQ models from Mercedes. Same as EQS, EQS SUV and EQE sedan. But the longer the drive is, the more you realize there is a kind of a difference. Because this car is the smallest one in the family. Still a pretty big vehicle, but it has less wheelbase and less length than the EQE sedan and for sure both of the EQSs. So at the end it feels a bit more agile and a bit more nimble. Hard to tell or hard to pronounce nimble when the car weighs more than 2.5 tons, but compared to the rest of the family, it definitely is more agile, especially if you opt for the rear wheel steering with a 10-degree angle in the rear wheels. That makes the car as handy as an, let's say, GLC or maybe even a GLB when it comes to cornering and parking. When it comes to driving, we have the drivetrains that we know from the rest of the EQ family. We're starting with one motor in the rear of 180 kilowatts for the base model, and we're going up to two motors with a total combined power of 300 kilowatts with Mercedes. And if you go for AMG, they'll add another more than 200 kilowatts, so summing up at 505 kilowatts and more than 1,000 Newton meters of torque. In this case, you have really sports car agility because the car then accelerates from 0 to 100 in less than 4 seconds. The power for all that comes from a battery mounted in the floor, and since the wheelbase is shorter, they could not fit the biggest battery in as they would do in the EQS. So this one is limited to 90.6 kilowatt hours, which still translates to a range of up to 600 kilometers in the best case. This one is the EQE 500, so the top end of the non-AMG models, has the big battery, and when I entered the vehicle it was almost fully charged, 98%, and I had a range of more than 500 kilometers, referring to the trip computer. So it is a daily driver without the daily need of charging. All fine for that. And since it's the newest car in the family, it has some gadgets the other vehicles haven't received yet and will receive with their updates and upgrades during the regular facelifts, both benefiting the range. The one thing is there is a decoupling unit for the front motor. If you don't need it, it is decoupled from the drivetrain, saving a bit of energy, giving you a benefit of roughly 5% of range. Another huge benefit is the heat pump, making use of wasted energy in the thermal system for cooling or heating up the cabin, giving you another few kilometers of driving power. Charging is still with maximum 170 kilowatts, translating to a range benefit of about 170-200 kilometers in 10 minutes in the best case. Let's just stop and take a look at the size and the shape of the vehicle, because that's something really particular with the EQE SUV. It's easily to be recognized as a member of the EQ family. They all have the same look. They are all very sleek and very drag coefficient and very aero efficient in styling. Not too many corners, not too many hard surfaces, very soft and very slim. But there's something more to tell. The car has 9 centimeters less wheelbase than the EQE limousine, and total length is just 4 meters 86, making it much smaller, for example, than a GLE. And it's less in height as well. So while the petrol world still gives you the ruggedness of an SUV, this is more on the crossover side, more elegant, more made for the cities. When it comes to the interior and the user interface, it's also a mix of very common and very well-known layout with some very cool new features. So yes, we have the 3 big screens integrated in the Hyperscreen, but the passenger can now view its videos also during driving without distracting the driver. There's a camera monitoring the driver's eyes and blocking the view to the passenger side. So even while the passenger is watching live sports events or Hollywood blockbusters, the driver has to keep his eyes on the road and may listen to the soundtrack of the music, but not allowed to see it. And for the first time, this works, and you can separate the views of the driver and the co-driver. We have some other cool features integrated, like we know it from the EQS SUV. We have the special off-road mode that not only lifts the air suspension and changes the drivetrain up to a better maneuverability. No, that also has some cool gadgets on the screen. You can see where your wheels are turned and pointing. You can see the different levels of the vehicle, and you can even watch underneath the bonnet. So the bonnet becomes transparent and you can see what's underneath. That's good if you have to avoid some rocks or some trees, but it's also good for maneuvering and parking, because you now can perfectly park in between the lines, can watch for the curbs, can save your rims. And the saving the rims might be a good thing if you put on 22-inch rims. They might be quite expensive if you ruin them on the curb. Another cool feature is now Mercedes has integrated streaming services like Thunk or the similar services in China. So whatever you want to watch, you will get it in the car with an ease. And they have changed their sound profiles, so there are even more sounds in the vehicle once it comes to the driving and the sound experience. My personal point of view is, if you have an electric car, you want to have silence and you want to stay quiet. But if you want to have it in a different way, you can have silver waves, vivid flux, roaring pulse, some natural sounds that are just new and coming into the system. So lots of toys and lots of tweaks where you can play with and where you can really set up the vehicle to your personal liking. For sure, not only the driver will feel a difference to the EQS SUV, the passengers will do so as well. Since the wheelbase is much shorter, the length of the vehicle is much shorter, there's less room in the interior. But since Mercedes is offering the EQE SUV only as a 2-row SUV and sparing the 3rd row that you can get optional in the EQS SUV, the comfort is still quite good on the back seat. So even with my almost 1.90 m and a proper seating position for the passenger, I have all the space in the world, and it is a proper 4-seat adult carrying vehicle. Maybe the 5th adult is not the most comfortable, but if you want to place 3 children or your in-laws and your child in the back seat, you're totally fine. And the trunk is pretty big as well. More than 500 liters of trunk space makes this car a vacation vehicle, and you can go on to a long summer holiday with the EQE SUV as well. Towing is somehow limited. Yes, a small trailer easy, but less than 2 tons as a limit doesn't give you the capability to drag horses or your big yacht. Then you have to stick with a petrol engine or go for a different electric car. Thanks for joining me on that first test drive with the new Mercedes EQE SUV. To my taste, this is the member of the family that fits perfectly to all of the needs and that offers the best compromise on an electric Mercedes that you can have at the moment. It is spacious but still sporty and handy to drive. It has lots of status, but it's kind of affordable, at least if you compare it with the other models. So this car has it all. And if you want to have more specific features in the one or the other direction, you can still get them. More space needed, then go for the EQS SUV. More status needed? Then take the EQS SUV as a Maybach that will come later that year, just to be launched at the Shanghai Auto Show in a few weeks' time. And if you need more off-road capability, there's an electric G-Class right around the corner, ready to hit the roads or hit besides the road towards next year. So every niche is covered, but this car targets the masses, and Mercedes is quite confident that this one will be their best-selling electric vehicle in the near future. And after driving it, I have no doubt that this prognosis will come true pretty soon. Thank you, Tschüsschen, Seitchen, and goodbye.